Hey everyone, before we begin, please subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Your support truly means the world. Caleb said it in front of everyone. I've loved your sister for 8 years. Then he smiled. Like 6 years with Mira meant nothing at all. Mira, the plus-size woman he'd asked to marry him, just stared. Then why did you propose to me? He shrugged. Because she never wanted me. That shrug did more damage than the confession. Mira slapped him hard enough to quiet the whole restaurant, tore off her ring, and threw it at his chest. That's when a stranger at a nearby table rose slowly to his feet. Nobody had warned her he was Darius Vane, the most feared man in the city. Nobody warned her he'd say 4 words that would follow her out the door. Don't leave yet. She left anyway. Made it halfway down the private corridor before Caleb caught up. Mira, wait. She kept walking. Can you stop for 1 second? You're turning this into something it doesn't need to be. That sentence stopped her. Not the confession. Not the humiliation in front of her family. Just that line. She'd heard versions of it for 6 years. You're overthinking it. You're too sensitive. You always assume the worst. Small corrections, over and over, until she stopped trusting her own instincts. 8 years, she said quietly. I was drunk. You were drunk when you said it. Were you drunk for 8 years? His jaw tightened. That was answer enough. Something in her collapsed. And underneath the pain, something clarified. She remembered asking why he went cold whenever her sister Alyssa visited. She remembered him laughing it off, kissing her forehead, telling her jealousy wasn't attractive. He'd known exactly where to cut. As the largest woman in every room, that treated thinness like a membership card, Mira had told him things about her own insecurities she rarely said loud, and he'd turned them into ammunition. Every time she questioned him, somehow the conversation ended with her wondering if she was just afraid he'd eventually want someone smaller. Someone like Alyssa. You knew, she whispered. Knew what? That I blamed myself. You let me believe my body was the reason I never felt secure with you. Mira, come on. No. You don't get to use my insecurities to cover for your dishonesty. Not anymore. Neither of them noticed the dining room door had swung open further, or that Darius Vane was standing in it, saying nothing, hearing everything. Caleb dragged a hand down his face. Fine. I handled it badly. But you're throwing away 6 years because I had feelings for someone else? You proposed to me. I chose you. Mira almost laughed. No. Alyssa rejected you without even trying. I was what was left. For the first time, he had no polished comeback. Then Alyssa appeared behind him, eyes wet, voice steady. You destroyed the woman who loved you because you couldn't get over someone who never wanted you. Alyssa, this isn't. It is now. Mira looked at her sister and saw no betrayal there, only horror. That was enough. She turned and walked out. Caleb called her name once. She never looked back. Darius watched her disappear through the doors, then noticed the small jewelry case she'd left behind on her chair. Stamped on the bottom was a tiny mark, a crescent moon wrapped around a flame. His composure cracked, just slightly. He knew that mark. It matched a box locked in his private safe, the one that had belonged to his mother. 4 days after ending her engagement, Mira was back at work. Heartbreak doesn't cancel invoices. Her studio sat between a tailor and an old bookstore, its window full of pieces she'd shaped and reshaped until they felt right. Metal could be melted down and started over. People weren't so cooperative. The bell above the door rang one afternoon, and Mira nearly dropped her pliers. Darius Vane stepped inside, somehow too large for the small space, not just his height, but the weight he carried into a room. 2 men in dark suits waited outside on the sidewalk, watching everything. If Caleb sent you, I'm going to disappoint both of you, she said. He didn't. Then this is either very good news or significantly worse news. Something almost moved across his face. He set a small velvet box on the counter. I came because of this. Inside was an old silver pendant, an olive branch wrapped around a tiny blue stone. Mira recognized the repair near the clasp instantly. She'd done it herself years ago. There was a woman, Darius said. You repaired this for her. Mira remembered. Her studio had barely survived its first year. She'd needed every dollar. The elderly woman had counted the coins in her purse twice, before quietly asking if Mira could hold the piece until she had enough. Mira fixed it anyway. She tried to pay in installments, Mira said. What did you tell her? Something stupidly dramatic, probably. You told her to come back when it meant something to her. Silence filled the studio. Darius's face stayed controlled, but grief shows up in controlled people differently, in the way they hold things carefully. She was my mother, he said. The room changed shape around those words. His mother, he explained, had sometimes gone places without the Vane name attached. Without security, without the machinery of being his mother, just to have ordinary conversations with people who didn't know what her son controlled. Mira had been one of those people. She'd died 2 years later. After her death, Darius found the pendant, and beneath it, the tiny crescent and flame mark. He'd spent years wondering who made it, until he saw the same mark stamped on a jewelry case at an engagement dinner that fell apart in front of him. I recognize anything connected to her, he said. Mira studied him. The papers called him a billionaire industrialist. The rumors called him something else, a man whose favors turned into debts. If you came to repay me, she said, you don't owe me anything. I know that answer would surprise most people. He closed the box. You were kind to her when her name meant nothing to you. I don't forget things like that. For once, she had no sarcastic reply ready. He turned and left. Only after the bell rang did she notice the black cars idling at the curb, his security folding around him like a tide. A man with that much power had walked into her tiny studio and asked for nothing. Caleb had spent 6 years making kindness feel like something she had to earn. This man had remembered one small kindness for almost a decade. And something told her he wasn't finished remembering. Darius came back 2 days later, this time with a contract instead of a box. Mira had spent 48 hours rehearsing every polite refusal she might need. Gratitude, money, some grand gesture. She wasn't ready for what actually landed on her desk. What's this? A proposal? That word and I aren't currently speaking, she said. Business, he clarified. His mother's charitable foundation was launching a collection honoring women who'd rebuilt their lives after loss. He wanted Mira's studio to design it, not a gift. A commission. She opened the contract and started reading. 5 minutes passed, then 10. She flagged licensing rights, ownership of her original designs, cancellation clauses, the fine print on future reproductions. Most people sign faster, Darius said. Most people probably have lawyers. I can provide one. That would be your lawyer. A pause. Fair point. 20 minutes in, she circled 2 clauses. This gives your company approval over changes after delivery. Yes. No. If my name's on this collection, nobody touches my designs without my sign-off. Something in his eyes sharpened, not annoyance. Interest. You're negotiating with me. Isn't that what contracts are for? They went back and forth on the exclusivity period, 18 months down to 9, with Mira adding that she wouldn't even charge extra for making a billionaire haggle in a room that smelled like solder. Darius reached for a pen. You really do read everything, he said once she'd signed. I just spent 6 years trusting the wrong man. I'm reading everything now. He nodded once. Good. That single word unsettled her more than sympathy ever could have. Their first design meeting was at Vane Industries headquarters. Stone, glass, and quiet money. Security recognized Darius before he hit the checkpoint. Executives lowered their voices when he passed. Nobody rushed to him. Nobody needed to. The building seemed built around his authority. But in the room, he never used it against her. When Mira rejected an expensive stone because it overpowered the design, the creative director glanced toward Darius for a ruling. It's her collection, Darius said. And that was that weeks turned into routine. She learned he drank his espresso black, hated unnecessary slideshows, and could silence a room just by going quiet. He learned she sketched when she was thinking, and argued with gemstones like they had personalities. Neither of them called it attraction. Not yet. Easier to call it work. Then one evening she found him alone by the conference room windows, her sketches spread across the table, staring at the piece built around his mother's pendant. "You don't like it. My mother would have." The honesty in that caught her off guard. He wasn't hiring her because he pitied the woman Caleb threw away. He was trusting her with a memory, and somewhere between contracts and quiet meetings, she'd started trusting him back. Caleb waited until she was alone to try again. The bell rang near closing time and her whole body went still. "I need 5 minutes," he said. "No, I've had time to think. Congratulations. I said terrible things. I know that. But what happened with Alyssa was complicated." "No, it wasn't. You loved someone who didn't love you back, then you used her sister as a substitute." He kept talking about how they'd worked, how her family loved her, how she understood his schedule. Mira realized, listening, that he wasn't describing love. He was listing services rendered. Then his eyes landed on the foundation's paperwork behind her, and his face shifted. "You're working with Vane now." There it was. His stalled development project needed institutional backing, and Vane Industries had rejected his financing package. "You think I control Darius? I think he'll listen to you. Then you should have submitted a project worth approving." He accused her of running off with a mafia boss for revenge. Or worse. Once, she would have slapped him. This time she just walked to the door and opened it. "Get out." A movement in the doorway. Darius, arriving early, having heard enough. Caleb's whole posture changed, charm sliding back over his face like a mask. "Mr. Vane, actually I've been hoping we could discuss." "No. You haven't heard the proposal." "I have. I wasn't interested." Past tense. Caleb's eyes flicked to Mira, and for the first time she saw real fear in him, not that Darius would hurt him, but that the woman he thought he still controlled was standing somewhere he could no longer reach. Mira held the door open. Caleb left. She locked it behind him. "You could have called me," Darius said. "I didn't need to. I know, no wounded pride, no demand for credit, just acknowledgement." What happens to his project? Nothing that wasn't already happening. His numbers were weak before anyone knew you and I were working together. He set a folder on her counter. "I won't use my company to settle your history for you, and the rest of your world. Not unless your safety requires it." For the first time in years, what made her feel safest wasn't what a powerful man was willing to do for her. It was what he was willing not to do. An architect named Adrian started bringing her coffee on Tuesdays. A long-time client, recently single, easy to talk to. He asked her to dinner. She said yes, and it felt different than anything with Caleb ever had. No calculation, no gratitude that someone had noticed her. She just wanted dinner. Darius arrived minutes later, clocked the second coffee cup, and went strangely quiet. For a man who ran corporations and something considerably less legal, he was terrible at hiding jealousy. Flowers showed up. He looked at them like they'd violated a zoning law. When Adrian called during a meeting, Darius suddenly found a spreadsheet very interesting. She almost enjoyed it too much, but underneath the comedies was something worth watching closely. Darius was used to control. She would not become another territory in his empire. "Would you like me to stop seeing him?" she asked him once. "That would be convenient." "For who?" Silence. "Exactly," she said. He crossed to her workbench. "I don't like him. You barely know him. I know enough. That's not an argument." "No," he admitted. "I'm used to removing complications. Adrian isn't a complication. He's a person you get to ask things I don't have the right to ask." Her breath caught. Caleb would have twisted this, called her defensive, punished her with silence until she apologized. Darius just stood there and accepted the boundary. He didn't like it. He accepted it anyway. "That sounds difficult," she said. "It is." He didn't ask her out that night. And strangely, she respected him more for waiting, because wanting her, he was learning, didn't create a claim on her. Caleb's project collapsed under its own weight. Weak numbers, incomplete disclosures, nothing Darius had to lift a finger over. But Caleb showed up one more time anyway, this time not pretending he wanted her back. "I need you to talk to Vane." "No, you haven't even heard." "I don't need to. You think I control him. I think he'll listen to you." She told him no again. He sneered that people were talking, that she'd lost her fiancé, and within weeks was running around with a mafia boss. Revenge? Or are you sleeping with him to get it? Once, that would have leveled her. Now it barely registered. She walked to the door and opened it. Get out, or I call the police. Darius was already standing in the back doorway, having arrived for the final review. His expression was unreadable, which was worse for Caleb than any outburst. Caleb backed toward the door, calculating the cost of testing a man like that, and thought better of it. This is between me and Mira. No, Mira said. It isn't. He left. She locked the door. 11 days after launch, the Foundation collection sold out completely. A design magazine featured it. Retailers called. Mira signed a lease on the storefront next door with her own money. No help required. Darius found her standing in the middle of paint samples and unopened boxes. You expanded? I did? You didn't tell me. You're not on the lease. He noticed the bottle of cheap champagne on her desk and looked personally offended. Absolutely not. You're being controlling again. This is different. That champagne is an insult to the occasion. She laughed. Months earlier, his opinions might have felt like orders. Now she understood the difference, and so did he. That night, with takeout between them and no security in sight, she asked why he kept finding reasons to visit. Long after the contract stopped needing him there. The first time it was my mother, he admitted. She told me once that a young jeweler treated her like she mattered, before knowing who she was. His eyes dropped to Mira's hands, still dusted with silver. Now I keep inventing reasons to come back. That's pathetic for a mafia boss. He didn't laugh this time. Mira. Something changed in the air. He moved closer and stopped just short of touching her, and that restraint mattered more than anything he could have said. Caleb chose you because someone else wouldn't choose him. He made his failure to see your worth feel like proof you didn't have any. The old wound pulled tight. He kept going, carefully. I'm choosing you because there's no one else I want. Months earlier, that might have been enough on its own. She knew better now. What if I need time? Take it. What if the answer isn't the one you want? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then it isn't. You'd actually accept that? No. I'd hate it privately and behave appropriately. She laughed. It broke the tension completely. That might be the most emotionally healthy threat I've ever heard. I've been practicing. She stepped closer. Caleb had taught her to cling to something broken, because losing it felt worse than shrinking inside it. Darius was teaching her the opposite, wanting without demanding, protecting without overriding her judgment, waiting without punishing her for making him wait. This isn't revenge against Caleb, she told him. And I'm not interested in being some beautiful object in your empire. You've argued with me too much for that to be possible. She kissed him first. He didn't pull her closer until she did. 1 year later, Mira stood in front of a mirror in a wedding dress built to follow her curves, not hide them. Nothing needed correcting. Behind her, Alyssa fixed the veil. You're staring, Alyssa said. That sounds dangerous on a wedding day. The studio now employed 4 people. 2 retailers carried her line. Darius had offered advice when she asked for it, introductions when she wanted them, and never once tried to hand her money instead of letting her build it herself. Adrian stayed a friend. Caleb's project had collapsed under its own bad math, no help from anyone, and Mira found that quietly satisfying. Darius waited outside the ceremony room. Even on his wedding day, his security blended into the property without a word from him. But when Mira appeared, he wasn't looking at any of them. Just her. You know, she said. Usually when you get that look, I get worried. The worst engagement of my life led me to my husband. His expression cooled instantly. I'd rather not thank Caleb for anything. She laughed. He studied her face. Still nervous. She nodded. He held out his hand, didn't take hers, just offered it. Want to leave? A year ago, she might have thought love meant a man refusing to let her go. She understood it differently now. Love was the door staying open, the choice staying hers. She placed her hand in his. Not this time. His fingers closed around hers. and the man an entire city feared walked into his wedding beside a woman who no longer needed anyone's choice to prove what she was worth. Caleb had taught her that being loved meant being picked over someone else. Darius had chosen her first, but before she could truly choose him back, Mira had already learned the harder thing, how to choose herself.